have a stretch for a few moments. Okay. So I'm going to talk for a while about Dhardo Rinpoche, and we'll have a chance to watch a short clip of him as well. Yeah, so I just wanted to give you a short history of his life in a way, so you get some context for who he was. So he was born in Tibet in 1917 in a place called Dhardo, which is on the eastern border with China. Not a well-known place, I think. And he was recognized as a very young boy as a tulku, which is what is that? He was recognized as an incarnate lama, so a reincarnation of a previous Tibetan lama at a very young age, I think. And I think that his previous incarnation was quite an important Tibetan figure, abbot of a monastery, and friends with the or advisor or even teacher to the 13th Dalai Lama. So yeah, he was found as a boy, and he was his name Dhardo is a shortening of Dart Sendo, and Rinpoche is like an honorific that's given in Tibet, and it means precious one. Yeah, and he was taken away in a sense. You know, he travelled away and was given a very rigorous monastic education. In a way, he was trained to be a bodhisattva. He was recognized as an incarnation, and then trained to become that figure, if you like. And this education was very rigorous, actually. I mean, I've been reading Suvajra, the Wheel and the Diamond. It's a really really strict education in many ways, and lots of memorizing, mantra chanting, meditation, of course, debating as well. The monks would have to debate on certain points of doctrine, and they'd need to be able to have things at their fingertips in a way. So yeah, that was his life, and he earned something called a Geshe degree, which is the culmination of this learning. By then he was gosh, I don't know how long that took, but he wasn't a young boy anymore. He was a young man, and he was then to go on and complete his tantric studies at a different monastery, and he, which was even more rigorous, by the way. You know, sleeping kind of sat up in meditation posture for 3 or 4 hours a night, and all of this meditation and recitation again. He became quite ill at that point. I don't think even he was sure of why that was, whether it was due to the training or something else. And he went to India to seek a cure, if you like, to find a way of becoming better. And at that point, what was looming in the air was China kind of moving into Tibet and coming to occupy Tibet. So he went to India, and I'm not sure he went back to Tibet after that. He because he'd earned his geshe degree, as it were, he'd done all of his training, he became abbot of the Tibetan monastery in Bodh Gaya, which was the place where the Buddha gained his enlightenment. And he stayed there for a while. I think he found the monks who were running the Tibetan monastery quite lazy, which he wasn't fond of. He was quite a strict taskmaster in many ways, which is a curious thing about him, because he has this other quality of compassion. He ended up going to Kalimpong, which was a small kind of hill station, if you like. And when he was there, he saw, by that stage, a lot of Tibetans were starting to leave Tibet, which was a very arduous journey. And he started to see a lot of Tibetan refugees coming over the border, and particularly children, often orphans without parents, and obviously in without very much to their names at all. And he decided that he wanted to help. I think that he did have some colleagues at that point who wanted to help as well. And so he started a school, which he called the Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Cultural Institute. And it was a school, first and foremost, that, it was a boarding school. So first and foremost, it was a place where these refugees, these children, could have a home, where they could get their material needs met, where they were safe and secure. But he was very keen on, very passionate about preserving the Tibetan culture, and alongside that, the Dharma. And so he wanted to give these children a sense of their homeland, if you like. And that's what he did there for the next 35 years, which was quite unusual for an incarnate Lama, because really he should have been this big Rinpoche in a big setup somewhere. But he stayed running this, in lots of ways, small school. It was there that he met Sangharakshita, the founder of Triratna, and became one of Sangharakshita's teachers. When Sangharakshita came back to the UK and started the movement here, a lot of order members used to go and visit Rinpoche, a pilgrimage, if you like. And this video, I think that the video is Suvadra talking to Rinpoche. And I think these meetings were what created this book, because very little was known about him. In a lot of ways, not a lot is written about him if you look at the sort of famous Rinpoche. So this book was created in this way. There are people in the Sangha who've met him. Shanti Prabha met Dhardo Rinpoche. And Shanti Prabha told me that when he went to meet him, Suvadra asked him to fill in some of the gaps for this book and ask him some questions that went into him. I believe Sagramati, who was here a few weeks ago, met Dhardo Rinpoche as well, and maybe some others. So yeah, let's watch this clip.
कैसे हो गया ये बात है इनको ऐसा है ना क्या बोलते हैं यूरोप आदमी है यूरोप आदमी लोग ऐसा हम बुद्ध धर्म में आ गया ये हमारा सबसे पहले खुशी और दिल में बहुत खुशी हुआ था इसके बाद हम दोनों साथ में एक खेत दो खेत ऐसा साथ में मिलते इन धर्म के ऊपर में ये बहुत इंटरेस्ट है हो गए हमको दिल में बहुत खुशी हुआ था और ऐसा है कि हमारे पास यहाँ भी रोज आता है हमारे साथ धर्म को बीच में बहुत हम उससे पूछते हैं मैंने भी ऐसा हिंदी अच्छा से नहीं लेकिन हिंदी में हम दोनों बोल के सब ठीक मानो हो जाता है इनको मैंने जो बोलता है खुशी में मानो हो जाता है इसलिए क्या होता है हम भी क्या होता है हमारा नाम में तो रिंपोचे बोला क्योंकि हमें क्या करना है रिंपोचे को भी काम क्या करना पड़ेगा दूसरे को धर्म शिक्षा देने को काम हम लोगों को काम है इसलिए मैंने सोचा हमको तभी को ना देख के जितना रिंपोचे को मैंने धर्म को कितना कर सकेगा तब पीछे रिंपोचे अपना यूरोप में जाकर सबको में फैला करके धर्म को बहुत धर्म को सेवा बहुत बड़ा होगा सोचेगा हमको एकदम खुशी से दोस्त होने को कारण नहीं है
What did Rinpoche think was most important? Well, what did Rinpoche first of all teach Sangharakshita?
Sangharakshita को अच्छा आपने सबसे पहले कौन सी शिक्षा दी? जो हम लोग पहले धर्म को पढ़ने बुद्ध शिक्षा में कैसे विशेषण हमको पूछते थे ये हम थोड़ा बता दिया ऐसा करते हम लोग खास एक छोटी है क्या बोलते हैं हम लोग जो धर्म को पढ़ने विशेषण ने जो पूछता है ये मैंने जितना एक कर सकेगा ये करता है या हम लोग इंग्लिश में क्या बोलते हैं जनरल नॉलेज होता है ऐसा में भी खास एक जो है किस्म को जो किस्म को ऐसा सब किया था इसके बाद फिर क्या बोलता है तारा को ये सब मैंने किया था तारा को लेकिन इतने में थोड़ा मुश्किल है ट्रांसलेट बहुत आसान है मैंने हिंदी में जितना थोड़ा ये दूसरा इंग्लिश से आशा से बदलने वाला नहीं था लेकिन
just play that last section. Oh no, don't worry. Yeah. Oh, don't worry. Yeah, it's fine. Thank you. Yeah, so there you can see there he's already quite an old man. I think that was in 1986. In 1986. And I think that Dhardo Rinpoche died in 1990. Yeah. I found it very interesting watching these videos after only having seen his photo for many years. I think what struck me with the video was his ordinariness in a certain way, which I'll probably talk about a bit more. For me, he embodies a lot of opposites. Yeah, I'll probably say more as I talk. Okay, so the school, the Indo-Tibetan Buddhist Cultural Institute, he created a motto for the school, which Sangharakshita helped him to translate, and part of it is on the shrine here. And the motto was, cherish the doctrine or the Dharma, live united and radiate love. I'm going to use those as a way of talking about him and his qualities, use that motto as a way of talking about him. Cherish the Dharma. Well, I've already told you about his rigorous education and these, you know, he was very knowledgeable. As I said, that he was learning to be a bodhisattva, perfecting himself, so that he could go beyond himself to help others. So I think for him, cherishing the Dharma was about knowing the Dharma, and he had this incredible regime of practice. He would get up very early and practice for almost 4 hours before the day began, and he would and that would involve meditation, mantra. He would brush his teeth while reciting the mantra of, I've got it written down here, Vajrabhairava, which is it's a wrathful form, a blue bull-headed figure. And that would finish, you know, I'm not sure, like 9, 10 o'clock, and then the rest of the day would be devoted to the school. And then his day would be involved in running the school, which had quite a lot to it. There was quite a lot to do. And then there'd be two more hours practice in the evening, where he'd perform puja and do other practices as well, visualizations, etc. So he was incredibly dedicated to practice. But to me, I think for him, he had real faith that created the conditions that he could then go into the day, into the world, and help other people. He also cherished his teachers very dearly. He had he had lots of big teachers in a way, but the teacher who I think he most cherished was the monk who almost brought him up as a young boy within this educational system. And I think in a way that the monks there would have been like mother and father in a certain way, because they didn't have direct contact with their parents. And he really cherished his teacher, and he would say, without him, I would not understand the Dharma. Without him, I would not understand the Dharma. He also, the stories in this book, there's another book called Dhardo Rinpoche, A Celebration, which is stories of those who've met him, order members who went to visit him, and Tibetans who were a part of his surroundings, if you like, in the school. But he seemed to cherish everything in a way. It was said that when people have reported when he was given a gift, he would just open the paper very, very carefully, and whatever was inside, he would almost kind of revere as a relic, or you know, he's very, very attentive to people, but to things as well. And he would save the paper and reuse it at some other time. So this sense of kind of everything being sacred in a way. There's a story in here of an order member who went to see him, and she'd bought a very small rupa of Avalokiteshvara, and she gave it to Rinpoche and said, can you bless the rupa? And he took it, and he obviously wasn't very, it wasn't a great rupa, you know, the handiwork wasn't there, and it had no base to take the blessing, he said. So he told the woman to come back tomorrow. When she came back tomorrow, he'd stayed up late in the night to create a kind of base for the rupa out of plywood and whatever he had to hand. There was a scarf around it, a saffron cloth, and he'd kind of consecrated the rupa. You know, it was heavier. He'd put things inside and blessed it as well, and he gave it back to her. Okay, so the second part of the motto, live united. Yeah, I think for Rinpoche, to live united meant to know the Dharma in a way, because for Buddhists, that means having a common vision of what we're moving towards, and kind of going beyond our likes and dislikes to create the conditions for each other to hear the Dharma. And he obviously founded the school as well, so that the children could find a way of living together, united in their culture. And so he created conditions for these refugees to live together, to be together. A kind of common basis for friendship, and that wasn't easy. You know, he didn't have a lot of money, I don't think. You know, the school was very hard up. In fact, when I mean, Sangharakshita would have known this, but when order members found out how hard up the school was, they started fundraising and sending the school money. It wasn't given money by the Indian government because he didn't teach the Indian curriculum, because he wanted to have a Tibetan education. There's these lovely kind of stories and teachings that he would give the children that would help them to live more harmoniously. He used to say to them, if you have a sweet, you know, a sweet that could bring you happiness, well, share the sweet with a friend, because there's twice the happiness. Share it with 2 other people, and that's 3 times the happiness. And that was his attitude. I think that's such a wonderful teaching. I'm going to read you another story from this book, actually, by a girl who was a refugee, who was at the school, who was born in 1976. So I'm going to read this to you. Her name is Yank Yidla. Yank Yidla was born in 1976 and adopted by Rinpoche when she was 2.5 years old. Rinpoche is everything to me. When I first came to the school, I was too young to attend classes, and I sat near Rinpoche all day. Rinpoche used to look after me himself and took so much care of me. Later on, when I joined the other hostel children, Rinpoche would come 4 times a day to hear us recite our prayers before meals. He would stand and listen and then watch us eating our meal and joke and laugh with us. Every night Rinpoche would come round to where the children were sleeping and spray something under our blankets to prevent us being bitten by fleas. Whatever I needed, I asked Rinpoche for. I was never scared to ask him for anything. If I needed a new pencil, I had to ask him. But first I had to show him the end of the old pencil. Later on, when I wanted to go to a movie, I asked Rinpoche for the money. Every year at Losar, Tibetan New Year, he would give me a new dress. During construction work at the school, Rinpoche would send me to collect any nails that had been bent and thrown on the ground. I would take them to Rinpoche and he would straighten them out and return them to the carpenter. There were many other waste materials that Rinpoche used to collect and I used to help him. Because of Rinpoche, I am not afraid of life. I feel I can face whatever comes. Because of Rinpoche's blessing, I never feel something bad will happen to me. Now I feel part of the ITBCI family. I never felt like an orphan. Rinpoche was always playing with us like a family member. We didn't realize then who he was. Now I would give him more respect. When I remember Rinpoche, I feel like crying. I don't know how I can ever repay him. So, yeah, I just think that's the nail story. It's just such a wonderful, in a way, you could just think that he was a bit tight in a way. But when you look at it more closely, you know, this little girl gets to feel like she's a part of the school because she's, you know, helping out and picking things up. I mean, being a teacher, I know how much young people like to do that and have responsibility. And of course, you know, there's less mess on the ground because things are getting picked up. The carpenters are getting the nails back, which they can reuse to build the school up. So there's less cost in having to buy nails all the time. So yeah, I just think it's a wonderful story. So yeah, this final part of the motto, radiate love. So I think for me, this is, it's strange that I'm here talking about him because really my first meeting with him was the photo in the Padma room. And when I look at his face, I seem to, for me, he has this, this look of compassion, which seems to go straight through me in a way. You know, I get a sense of him through the photograph, but that's quite a personal thing maybe. I know that other people, you know, when they report meeting him, often felt that they were completely taken in by him, that his attentiveness and mindfulness was very powerful. Of feeling beloved, you know, of having someone looking at you like you're beloved, this look of compassion and concern. And it was backed up through these constant kind of acts of kindness. You know, there's so many stories of him giving all of the time. You know, when he went out into Kalimpong, which was a small kind of town, if you like, he'd take 2 wallets with him, one with money in to buy what was needed. The other wallet was full of coins to give to beggars on the way. And he would deliberately go out of his way to down difficult parts to give to beggars that he knew would be there. And often the people around him used to say, Rinpoche, you don't need to go that way. Don't go here. And he used to say, well, if you knew the power of giving, you wouldn't say that to me. So yeah, I get a sense of how powerful that must have been to receive, and as I say, I do through his photograph, and he does that through this kind of depth of practice, mindfulness, a kind of complete lack of self-preoccupation. Sangharakshita said to me when he met him, it was like he wasn't there. It was like a complete lack of ego in a way. So at the same time, he's not kind of soft and flowery. So I don't know if anyone's been watching this Nature of Mind series. Paul Gilbert was talking about compassion. And then Sadhanandi and Kshantikara were doing a seminar on it. And Sadhanandi said that she was talking about these near enemies of compassion, and the near enemy of compassion was pity. And so that's when you recognize the suffering in someone, but you fix it in a way. You know, you see it as a fixed kind of entity, and it kind of stays. It stays small. Compassion is where you see the suffering, but then there's this kind of, how do I say it? There's room for change and growth. And so there's this other side to him where, like I said, he was quite a hard taskmaster, I think. And the other thing that I see in his photo is a real sense of like willing and urging to do better, in a sense, to practice more so that I can help other people. So I think he had those two kind of sides to him. And he wasn't afraid to give advice, actually. A lot of the Tibetans talk about advice that he gave him. And it was all based around this kind of principle of what's going to be of greater benefit to everyone. So yeah, just to finish there, I think, you know, for me, his life and his communication, it exemplifies this single principle of the greater benefit. And for Dhardo Rinpoche, he's really clear that the greatest benefit for beings is to hear and to practice the Dharma. And all of his activities are based around helping to make that happen. He kind of organized his life around that principle. And yeah, evident is in his activities and his qualities, his whole attitude. He even, if you notice, frames his whole friendship with Sangharakshita around what would be of most benefit. You know, that he could teach Sangharakshita and then he could come to the West and teach the Dharma. And, you know, here we are, not solely down to Rinpoche, but in part because of that, because of him. There was another, something else I read in the Bodhicharya Vitara, which reminded me of him. One should always look at people directly, as if drinking them in with the eye. Depending upon them alone, Buddhahood will be mine. And so I was really kind of perplexed by that, because it, you know, I tend to think of the Dharma as something that I need to do, that I need to practice. It's all about personal responsibility and effort. And then in the Bodhicharya Vitara, it's saying, well, depending on other people, Buddhahood will be mine. And in a way, I don't think I really understand that, but I think Dhardo Rinpoche does, because his life was about benefiting others fully. You know, that's how I see him. And yeah, maybe that's what happens when you don't have a firm distinction between yourself and other people. Maybe that's the way that you behave. Yeah, and making contact with that perspective, I find that really, really inspiring. The thing about Rinpoche, he's obviously, you know, you can hold him up as this ideal, but you know, there's this story that when he was found, he didn't feel like a bodhisattva, he didn't feel like an incarnate lama, but because other people needed him to be, that's what he became. And I think he's saying to us, well, I can do that, so you can do that too. You can be a bodhisattva, however kind of lofty that ideal might seem to all of us. I think that's enough. I did want to leave some time just for discussion. So we've got about 10 minutes. Yeah. So we could maybe just get into kind of groups of three, maybe three or four in the room. I don't think we need to go anywhere. And yeah, you could just share your impressions of Dhardo Rinpoche. You might want to talk about your benevolent friend and how their qualities inspire you, help you to grow. Or you might want to talk about, you know, what is the wisdom of benefiting other people? What is the wisdom of benefiting other people?